Vienna is a city of luxurious balls, refined culture and impeccable style. But that night at the legendary Hotel Sacher, everything did not go according to the classic scenario. Tom Hanks, a man whom the world knows as the perfect Hollywood gentleman, staged something between a theatrical performance, a bar brawl and a scene from a movie about crazy rock stars in the hotel lobby. The beginning of chaos, when schnapps decides everything. According to eyewitnesses, the evening began completely calmly. Tom appeared in a stylish black tuxedo, surrounded by several friends and producers with whom he was working on a new project. At first, everyone chatted pleasantly over glasses of red wine, admired the evening panorama of Vienna and joked about the Austrian accent. But then Hanks, in his own words, decided to add a little Austrian flavor to his night. He ordered first one schnapps, then another, and then his friends, who seemed to have already anticipated the inevitable chaos, began to incite the actor to try even stronger drinks. "Hey, Tom, you played the captain in The Exile. What do you need this schnapps for?" joked one of those present. Hanks smiled, raised his glass and exclaimed, "Life is like a box of chocolates. But today I want a box of schnapps." The piano, a broken glass and the first problems. After the fifth or sixth glass, the celebrity suddenly jumped up from his seat and went to the hotel piano, where a professional pianist was playing. Tom unceremoniously pushed the musician aside and began to press the keys, muttering something under his breath. And then, bang! He hit the keys with all his might and, waving his arms, began to shout, "This is too boring. Where is the rock and roll?" The confused pianist tried to get his instrument back, but Hanks did not give up. He grabbed a martini glass that was standing nearby, took a big sip, and then swung and accidentally threw the glass right into the luxurious chandelier. Glass flew all over the hall, and then the hotel staff began to intervene. "Mr. Hanks, maybe you should take a break?" the manager asked politely. "Take a break? I'm just getting started." Tom shouted and, like a true rebel, climbed onto the piano, stretching his arms up as if celebrating victory in a marathon. The hotel staff did not know what to do. One of the greatest actors of all time stood before them, but he behaved like a drunken rock musician of the 80s. The grand piano cracked loudly under the actor's weight, and the crowd of hotel guests held their breath. The waiters whispered nervously among themselves, and the hotel manager, pale as a porcelain cup of Viennese coffee, had already dialed the security number. But Tom Hanks didn't even think of stopping. "I'm fucking Forrest Gump, and I want to run," he suddenly exclaimed, jumped off the grand piano, almost falling, and rushed towards the restaurant hall, where tourists were calmly enjoying Viennese strudel and elite champagne. However, on the way he crashed into a tall man in an expensive suit who was holding a glass of white wine. The wine splashed right on his white shirt, and the man, a respectable businessman from Germany, as it turned out later, did not appreciate this turn of events. "What, are you crazy?" he said angrily, shaking off his shirt. Hanks, no longer fully aware of what was happening, looked at him and instead of apologizing suddenly burst out laughing. "Oh, sorry, buddy. Let me buy you a new shirt, or, better yet, a new life." He spread his arms theatrically, barely keeping himself on his feet. At this moment, the German apparently lost his patience. He tried to push Tom away, but the actor, unexpectedly for everyone, dodged and, balancing on the verge of drunken fencing, grabbed the nearest plate of strudel and threw it right in the businessman's face. Strudel war, the beginning of chaos. The sweet filling smeared itself all over the face of the stunned German. The women in the hall screamed, the waiters rushed to save the dishes, and one of the businessman's friends, a stocky man who looked like a former Special Forces soldier, grabbed Tom by the lapels of his tuxedo. "You're done for, Hollywood," he hissed. But Hanks, instead of complying, suddenly swung the champagne bottle. It was unclear whether he wanted to defend himself or simply swung his arms by accident, but the bottle hit the man on the shoulder, and he stumbled back, catching the waiter with the tray. The tray flew into the air. Schnapps, wine, and another strudel, it all mixed together in a chaotic culinary disaster. And then everything went completely wrong. The guards, finally realizing that the situation was out of control, rushed to calm Hanks down. But Tom, clearly at his most agitated, began to squirm. "You have no right to touch me. I, the one who saved Private Ryan." One of the guards, clearly not a fan of the film, simply grabbed the actor in a tight grip, while the other helped pull the angry German away from him. Hanks was carried out of the hotel to thunderous applause from the drunken guests, who were now filming the whole thing on their phones. The next morning, Tom woke up in his luxurious suite with a wild headache and a €50,000 fine for the destroyed piano, broken glasses, strudel ammunition and moral damages. His first question was, "What the hell is a piece of strudel doing in my pocket?" The light through the luxurious windows of the room was pouring straight into his eyes. His head was splitting, his mouth was dry, and the silk sheets were covered in crumbs of something sweet. Tom Hanks opened his eyes and saw a piece of Viennese strudel in his hand. What the hell? He sat up in bed, fumbled for his phone to check the time, and then he heard a loud knock on the door. "Mr. Hanks? This is the hotel administration. We need to discuss some incidents from last night." The actor sighed heavily, threw on his robe and stumbled to the door. There stood a man in an expensive suit, with his hair combed back and an extremely dissatisfied expression on his face. In front of him was a folder of documents and a check for €50,000. Hanks exclaimed, almost dropping the papers from his hands. The receptionist remained unmoved. "Mr. Hanks, I respect you as an actor. But your evening last night, well, let's say it left a noticeable mark on our establishment." "I just had a little drink, don't exaggerate," Hanks tried to joke, although he himself was not sure that it was true. "Oh, if it was just a little drink," the receptionist cleared his throat, opened a folder and began to read with incredible self-control. "A broken grand piano in the hotel lobby." Yes, the same one that Tom climbed onto and tried to play. Cost of repair, €15,000. A broken expensive Italian glass worth €3,000. You threw it into the chandelier, Mr. Hanks. A strudel attack on a guest. We have officially received a complaint from Mr. Richard Claus, a businessman from Germany, who was the one who threw a caramel apple strudel in his face yesterday. Well, not with cherries, Tom muttered. A fight with the staff. You told our waiter that he could never run a marathon like Forrest Gump and threw a napkin at him. A mysterious call to the police. At 3:47 a.m., you called the Vienna police and said that you were being held captive by the Austrian monarchy. Did you have a reason? Hanks closed his eyes, rubbed his face with his hands, and sighed deeply. Look, I don't usually do that. This is some kind of mistake. The receptionist finally allowed himself a slight smile. I don't doubt it, Mr. Hanks. But our hotel, well, it's suffering a bit from your mistakes. Hanks sighed again, looking at the check with the crazy amount. Is there anything good I did yesterday? The manager thought for a moment, flipped through the papers, and finally said. Well, before the security guards took you out, you gave our maid a €1,000 tip and said that she's the only person in this hotel who really understands you. Tom just nodded. Well, at least something. Tom sat on the bed, holding the same check for €50,000 in his hands, and tried to remember what else he had done yesterday. The headache, the feeling of shame, and the faint taste of strudel in his mouth made the situation even more humiliating. The manager of the hotel, crossing his arms, waited patiently. Mr. Hanks, do you have any more questions? Yes, I do, Tom raised his head. What do you mean by another surprise? The receptionist sighed and unfolded another piece of paper. We received a complaint from the Austrian police. It turns out that after you were taken out of the hotel, you didn't go to sleep, and instead stole a horse-drawn carriage. Silence. Hanks blinked. What did I do? They stole a horse-drawn carriage. Right off the tourist trail near St. Stephen's Cathedral. This is a joke, right? Unfortunately, no. We have a video. The receptionist opened his tablet, pressed the play button, and there it was, a picture of chaos. The video shows Tom Hanks, in his tuxedo unbuttoned and with a bottle of champagne in his hand, climbing into the front seat of the carriage. The driver, an elderly Austrian, looks completely bewildered as Tom waves his arms and shouts, "This is my carriage and I'm going to the ball." The horses, which no one was going to direct, start moving on their own. Tourists film on their phones, people scream, and Hank stands on the seat of the carriage, waving his arms, and sings, "My Heart Will Go On," to the entire center of Vienna. In the next frames, the carriage crashes into a billboard, and Hanks falls into the hay. The police are already running to the scene. End of the video. Tom Hanks simply covered his face with his hands. Oh, shit. Yes, Mr. Hanks. Shit. The administrator agreed. Police, fines and a way out. The administrator continued. Given your stellar reputation, the Austrian police are ready to close the case, but on condition that you compensate for all the damages caused. How much more? Another 20,000 euros. For the damaged billboard, the frightened coachman and traumatic stress in the horses. Traumatic stress in the horses? Yes. The owner of the carriage claims that after the incident his horses no longer want to work with drunk people. Tom threw his face into the pillow. Wonderful. Just wonderful. The only way out. For several minutes Hanks just lay in the pillows until he came to his senses. He raised his head. Okay. I'll make up for everything. But I have one condition. The administrator raised an eyebrow. I want to apologize personally to that coachman. And in front of the horses too. The administrator didn't believe his ears at first, but after a moment he nodded. Agreed. I'll organize everything. And I hope you're not planning any Viennese adventures today? Hank sighed heavily. No. For today, I just want a cup of coffee, and to be unrecognizable for at least a few hours. P.S. That same day, Hanks did meet with the coachman and apologize, bought him a new hat to replace the one he had taken off during the accident, and even fed the horses apples. But Vienna will long remember the night when the Hollywood gentleman became the mad carriage king.